Please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Hello everyone, welcome to the Halls of Injustice. We haven't done one of these in a while. Please smash the like. If you like crime content, this one had to happen. We've been waiting for a little while. Today's inmate, number, God knows what. We're going to make it up. He's number whatever. Yeah. He's going to be with us for a while, but not in the real world. Because it turns out this is a legitimate case of injustice. In the past, I have covered those who have gotten sentences where I believe their harsher sentence was required. But at present in the United Kingdom, they're more interested in jailing those that send mean tweets or attend protests because how dare they say nasty things about the government? How dare the government be held accountable? Today's inmate has benefited massively from protections from institutions that I firmly believe need to be defunded, and was for the longest time held in the highest of regards when it came to journalism within the United Kingdom, and you could argue by extension, presenters. His name is Hugh Edwards. Hugh Edwards is a nonce, and as far as I'm concerned, either you get a lengthy sentence, you are castrated, or you are introduced to a wood chipper. Whatever happens afterwards is a completely different thing. I say introduced. Others would suggest you be pushed into it. I think that'd be a waste of a perfectly good wood chipper. I just want you to see it. What I want to do for this video is tell you a bit about Hugh Edwards, what he has done, the trial itself, and the absolutely laughable sentence. And I say laughable, consider it a spoiler. His sentence was beyond parody. If ever there was proof of injustice being rife, or those working for the BBC not being held accountable for what they have done in the past, and yes, defund the BBC, this would be a perfect demonstration of a failure of the justice system, and a failure of an institution that needs to be abolished, sold off, or erased from history entirely, which is somewhat ironic since the BBC have been doing that with anything that Hugh Edwards has featured in since. So let me tell you a little bit about who Hugh Edwards is. You know, beyond him being a filthy nonce. Hugh Edwards is a 63-year-old from Wales who served as a news presenter for the BBC, yes, defund the BBC, from 1984 to 2024. He also has a doctorate, which he received in philosophy in 2018. So to an extent you can call him a doctor as well if you like. Please don't. He is featured on TV shows, which would include various news coverage channels on BBC's networks that is, but also in Doctor Who, which the BBC are busy scrubbing. He was one of the highest paid employees for the BBC as well. Over the years they have been very open about what some of their presenters are paid. It has led to accusations of gender inequality. This part has to be mentioned because we're going to later discuss what he was being paid while he was being charged and tried. It's relevant. For the 40 years he had worked for the BBC, he was known as a very straight up and down presenter. No fuss, no muss, held in high regard because he simply did his job. He didn't get involved in anything. He opened various university cafes. He was actually involved heavily in Welsh education, going back as far as 2003, when he was made a Fellow of the University of Wales. He's also very proud of his Welsh heritage, and in 2020 criticised a UK tabloid, The Times, for printing a story that was dismissive of the use of the Welsh language. Since his PhD is partly based around the Welsh language, yes, he took offence. Hugh Edwards' love of his native nation goes as far as his own religion as well, where he attends Presbyterian services that are hosted in Welsh. And I earlier may have mentioned he's married to 5 children. They've been separated for a while. I have a sneaky feeling the crime he committed did him no favours. This is all the information you need on this nonce. You really don't need much more. We're now going to talk about the crime he committed, and I'm going to be quite clear here. I'm not inserting trigger warnings anymore, I'm sick of them. But what he did was bad. The BBC have yet again fallen foul. Over the years there have been a number of presenters on their time, paid really well for their services in fact, and championed by society at large, who have gone on to commit crimes while under their employment. There's no version of this where the BBC look good in the slightest. So now let's talk about the crimes committed by Hugh Edwards. On the 7th of July 2023, The Sun UK tabloid reported that a well-known BBC presenter had paid a teenager more than £35,000 since they were 17 years old in return for sordid images. The story was based on allegations by the mother and stepfather of the teenager. A lawyer representing the young person said nothing inappropriate or illegal had ever taken place, and that they were estranged from their mother. On the 12th of July 2023, Hugh Edwards' wife named him as the subject and said he was receiving hospital treatment for depression. I need to interject here and insert a couple points. Firstly, well done to the wife, ex-wife of Hugh Edwards, for coming forward and naming him. It was the right thing to do, because he had committed a crime if this was true at this point. Sending and receiving and paying for that kind of material for somebody under the age of 18 is a crime. Shortly before Hugh Edwards was named, the Metropolitan Police reported it had found no evidence of crime and would not investigate further. The Sun stated it had never alleged criminality on the part of Hugh Edwards, which The Guardian described as backtracking. They hadn't named him though, so it was not backtracking, they were just looking for an excuse to say it. The Sun also said it would cooperate with the BBC's internal investigation and would not publish further allegations. Hugh Edwards was provided the results of the BBC's inquiry on or before November 2023 and was not reinstated. In January 2024, he was reported as too unwell to discuss his employment with the BBC, and in April he resigned from the BBC on medical advice. Now skip ahead in time, because there's some parts of this missing. On the 29th of July 2024, the Metropolitan Police stated Hugh Edwards had been charged with 3 counts of making indecent images of children. That includes receiving digital copies. Legal definition of which includes actions such as downloading images, receiving them through email or social media even when unsolicited. These were shared via WhatsApp by a 25-year-old convicted sex offender called Alex Williams between December 2020 and April 2022. These comprised of 6 Category A images. Category A is the absolute worst of the worst. 12 Category B images and 19 Category C images. Hugh Edwards was sent 377 sexual images, 41 were indecent images of children. Earlier mentioned Alex Williams, in March of this year, received a 12-month suspended sentence after pleading guilty to possessing and distributing Category A, B and C images. Hugh Edwards was arrested on the 8th of November 2023 and charged on the 26th of June 2024, following authorization from the Crown Prosecution Service. In the case of Hugh Edwards though, this ended very quickly. There's a reason why in a moment we'll get to, don't you worry. I should add that the young person in July 2024 came forward and said he believed that Hugh Edwards had in fact groomed him. Under UK law, that is exactly what Hugh Edwards had done. Hugh Edwards, a man in his early 60s, sexually conversing with somebody who was 17. Are you out of your freaking mind? Even if we roll the years back, 6 or 7 years, Hugh Edwards is still late 50s, conversing with a teenager in a sexual manner. It is a power play from a very thirsty, hungry man, a nonce no less. It is unacceptable, and he knows it. While nothing came of that yet, we should focus on the images found in the WhatsApp. People are remarkably stupid. They seem to think because you have WhatsApp, your messages are encrypted and therefore we can't see it. Bish, the moment you're sent a photo and you even vaguely open that message, it is saved on your phone. Most people have cloud storage automatically on. That stuff would have been backed up to your cloud drive in no time. There were a number of issues when it came to dealing with Hugh Edwards, not least because he was considered incompetent, unable to do much. He had checked himself into a rehab facility for a while, so much of this died down early on, almost like he was circumventing responsibility. I don't care how depressed you are, a crime was committed, you must pay the piper for it. So what did Hugh Edwards do when presented with irrefutable evidence he had committed a crime? A heinous crime, a rather severe crime at that. On the 31st of July 2024, at Westminster Magistrates Court, he pled guilty to all charges against him. Those charges were 3 counts of making indecent images of children. Because we know this comprises of Category A, B and C images, a custodial term was by the judge at that point met as criteria. Like, you have to meet a threshold, right? He met the threshold with the Category A images alone. He was released on bail pending sentencing because he was not considered a flight risk. My view was, hold him in custody. But I guess at that point, with an incoming Labour government, and them releasing people 40% of the way into their sentences because space was needed for those pesky mean words on Twitter, it was unlikely they were going to hold him. Now, upon him pleading guilty, the BBC began removing his appearance from its archive footage. This did include the Doctor Who episode Fear Her, along with his voice removed from BBC's coverage of Queen Elizabeth II's funeral and King Charles III's coronation. A mural of him in his hometown of Unpronounceable was painted over, and a plaque honouring him at Cardiff Castle was taken down. During the time leading up to his guilty plea, the BBC had in fact still been paying his salary while he was on sabbatical. This had led to a debate amongst many as to whether or not he should have been paid at all. Now, because he had not pled guilty, he was innocent until proven guilty. Therefore, he was well within his right to receive the money he was due for his employment as per the contract they had signed. Because we must abide innocent until proven guilty, the BBC paying him was correct, and I have to agree with that. Because at that point, we did not know, therefore you cannot say, oh, but in hindsight. That doesn't work here. We're not that type of person. In August of this year, 2024, the BBC announced it had in fact asked Hugh Edwards to return more than £200,000 of the salary paid after his arrest in November 2023. The chair of the BBC in fact had said that Hugh Edwards acted in bad faith by continuing to draw his salary. To be honest, he shouldn't have to give that back because he was still under contract with them at that point. This led to many to press, and arguably justifiably so, on the idea that the BBC yet again are seen protecting a nonce. After Jimmy Savile, after Rolf Harris, although he did overturn a number of the charges against him before he passed away, many now believe the well has been poisoned for the BBC. And I would argue there is a point there. The BBC have had a number of problems with kids' TV presenters, and now they've got arguably one of the biggest falls from grace in the news reporting area they've ever had. And it is a fall from grace. There were articles doing their rounds justifiably calling it as such. His fall from grace is something completely unique, because it happened over a short space of time in one area, and all we got, because there was no trial for this, was him pleading guilty, and until his sentencing he was a free man. Because we knew he met the threshold for custody, I sat on a number of sources and waited. So with that, we're going to get to the sentencing. This part genuinely made me angry. It made me angry because this is not a sentence. Hugh Edwards, inmate number whatever, on the 16th of September 2024, was given a 6-month prison sentence, suspended for 2 years, and placed on the sex offenders register for 7 years. He was also ordered to attend a sex offender treatment program and pay £3,100 in costs and victim surcharge. The reason for the sentencing, from the Chief Magistrate Paul Goldspring, was that Edwards would have been given 1 year imprisonment, but 3 months were deducted for mental health reasons and due to it being a first-time offence, along with the fact he pled guilty early. Hugh Edwards also wrote an apology to his family and to the victims of the child abuse. He met the criteria for prison, and Paul Goldspring was going to give him 1 year had he not entered an early guilty plea. I don't care if you've entered a guilty plea. When it comes to children, the sentence is life. You're 60 bloody whatever. Who cares really? You should be in prison for the remainder of your life. I don't care if you're a risk to children, which you have been determined by the courts to not be. But you can be rehabilitated, which is what the courts have stated. As far as I'm concerned, he sent and received images of Class A indecent images of children. You may think he can be rehabilitated. I disagree. You should remain in one of these isocubes for the rest of your life. Obviously, we also include, for those who are nonces, a complimentary castration, where you get to watch them rot for the remainder of your years. Perhaps you should have stuck to your lane as a Welshman and just shagged sheep while getting pegged with a leek. This is Hugh Edwards leaving court after receiving his pitiful sentence.
Mr. Edwards, do you repent? How many more images do you He's not! He's wild! Mr. Edwards! Look! Will you pay penance? Will you expose the cult of paedophilia?
He should not be leaving court after receiving the sentence without irons on his wrists and ankles, being led into a van to go to a prison, preferably one built and resembling Azkaban. To me, what has happened is very literal injustice. He paid for indecent images of children and exchanged them with a known S. offender, who also, by the way, if you didn't notice, earlier got a Mickey Mouse sentence as well. If justice is blind, it apparently is blind to those who benefit from privilege, who will use mental health as a way of negating responsibility, and obviously blind to the plight of children, who are taken full advantage of by those who have been held in high regard for far too long.